Parshas Vayailech, the last mitzvah in the Torah is V'yato kisvu lachem es hashira hazos, and it's usually interpreted as write yourself, atom with an ayin, meaning now, write for yourselves this song. It specifically is referring to Ha'azinu, but we learn out from this halacha of writing the entire Sefer Torah, which is called a song to Hashem, and therefore the last mitzvah in the Torah is to write a Sefer Torah, a well-known mitzvah. As a takeoff, there are going to be two different aspects of this pasuk, which have divergent purposes, but come to the same conclusion. And that is, in Pirkei Avos, we learn a famous rule, Halomed almanas lelamed, maspikim biyodo lilmod ulalamed. Halomed almanas la'asos, maspikim biyodo lilmod ulalamed lishmor v'la'asos. One of the ikar purposes of learning and teaching is to accomplish. We can accomplish things in many ways. We can accomplish things by sitting and learning, and we can also do mitzvahs. Learning is also a mitzvah. But what is the point? Listen to this. The Rosh, no less than the Rosh, from whom we have coming down from the Rosh, is the Shulchan Aruch and all of our Paiskim. So we very frequently listen to the Piskei HaRosh. In his time, he writes, in his time, when there were so many Sifrei Torah standing in the Aron HaKodesh, and they never get used, he says, a better way to fulfill this mitzvah, believe it or not, as joyous as we are, when we have a new Sefer Torah, we make a parade, and we're so proud and happy to see a Sefer Torah joining the ranks of the Sifrei Torah, he says, even greater than this is a bigger mitzvah to write Sifrei Torah of Torah Sheba'al Peh. When a person sits down and writes Chidushim, when a person sits down and writes Sfarim, and he's learning Torah ba'amkus and with Shleimus, he's being Mekayim this mitzvah on an even greater level. How does he know that? Interesting chap and diuk that the Rosh has, because the pasuk says va'ato. Va'ato means and now. Why is he saying that? Why is the Torah telling you and now? Only now. So he brings down now. If there are not enough Sifrei Torah around, in Moshe Rabbeinu's time there were very few Sifrei Torah. Each shevet had one. There was a mitzvah to write Torah Shebiksav. However, in the next Dairos, in the future Dairos, when there'll be many, many Dairos, much better, he says, to write Torah Sheba'al Peh. That is the ikar of the mitzvah, to write Divrei Torah, and we can be Mekayim this mitzvah. So a person should realize the godless involved in writing Divrei Torah, he's being Mekayim, according to the Rosh, a chiyuv d'oraisa, a mitzvah d'oraisa, which I thought was a very interesting observation. Now, a completely different take on some aspect of transmitting Torah is a fascinating story, the beginning of which all of you will know and recognize, and the end of which none of you has heard of, as I didn't, unless you've learned more than me, which is of course not that difficult at all. It says in the pasuk nearby, Hakhilu Elais kol ziknei shiftechem v'shotrechem v'adabra v'oznehem es hadvar ha'ela. You have to write the Divrei Torah, but I also have to transmit in Torah, in learning, peh al peh, from my mouth, Moshe says, from my mouth, and into their ears, v'adabra v'oznehem. It says it very clearly. All of these things. What are these things? What is he referring to? We think, and we understand it means the Torah, that there is many ways of transmitting Torah, writing, speaking, learning, and doing. Listen to this. We all know the Maisa with Talmai HaMelech, brought down Masechet Megillah, Daf Tes Amud Aleph, that gathered 72 Zikanim. He wanted to prove or disprove the veracity of Torah. He put them all into separate compartments. We all know the story. And he went over to each one individually. And he says, I want you to translate the Torah of your teacher Moshe. And we know that the Medrash says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu put into the heart of each and every one of them the Eitzah, and they all made the same changes, because they had to change some of the words so that there shouldn't be any misrepresentation, but they all changed it in exactly the same way, a tremendous nace. We know, just as an aside, that this is a black day in history when the Torah was translated, because it was not meant to be translated, but leaving that aside for the moment, this was a tremendous nace that they all made the same changes and they were all exactly the same. The Shach al HaTorah, which is not the same Shach as the Shach in the Shulchan Aruch. The Shach al HaTorah, in our parsha here, in a Divra Maskil of a Vart called Hikilu, this Vart, I'm going to tell you now, is coming from the Oyser Place HaTorah, writes an amazing thing. When this pasuk, which I just said to you, says, V'adabra bo his name is Advar Ma'ele, Moshe Rabbeinu knew through Ruach HaKodesh that which was going to happen to Talmai HaMelech and the Zekanim, that they would have to change the Torah against their will, so there should not be a lie, there shouldn't be a rumor about Chas v'Shalom, the veracity of the Torah. So Moshe Rabbeinu gathered together 72 Zekanim, and he told them in their ears all of these changes, that these are the changes that would have to be made if the Torah is going to be translated, and pass it down in every door, in each and every door. After this time, those Zekanim were moiser these shinuyim to the next generation until the time of Talmai HaMelech. So there should not be any possible accusation against the Torah, and that these 72 changes were not made up by themselves. We say HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it into their minds, but this is, according to the Shach, a Messiah from Moshe Rabbeinu of how to transmit the Torah and how to perpetuate the truth of Torah. V'adabra bo haznehem. Goes back to our pasuk of Kisvu Lachem es Hashira Hazois. We are keeping the Torah eternally, that no matter what happens to it, no matter what happens in history, there will not be any ziyuf against the Torah. They may not agree with us, they may burn the Torah, but no one has ever accused us of falsifying the Torah. And that's what this pasuk is saying. V'adar bo haznehem. They are not to change this or to transmit this secret to anyone else, but only to the Zekanim of each dar, so that they would have the genuine changes that Moshe Rabbeinu instructed them to make. And I thought that this was a fabulous add-on to the story of the 72 Zekanim of Talmai HaMelech. Bottom line, we all have to do our part to continue to transmit the Torah Shebeksav and Torah Sheba'al Peh, and no matter what we do, in whatever modality we have, whether it's writing it on white stones or doing it through a podcast, we're being mekayim the mitzvah of limud HaTorah, and in that schus, all of our children in 9 o'clock will continue that Mesorah at Bias Goel Tzedek. Good Shabbos.